Thanks for joining us today. WIST Next Gen presents Discover Sports Tech. It's important to know, again, that although your faces are not public, please know that this webinar is being recorded. A bit of background: Women in Sports Tech is a global nonprofit organization with the mission to drive growth opportunities for women in the sports tech industry and introduce students to the wide and exciting variety of careers in the sports tech business. On today's webinar, WIST Next Gen, our goal is to inspire young women like all of you to continue the STEAM classes you love and encourage your continued participation in the sports you're passionate about at the same time. Today, we have our WIST Next Gen team, along with Kelly, founder and CEO of Curastory. Tiffany, we are thrilled to have you again, a part of our WIST webinar series. And thank you so much for joining us. Just really quick, we'll have an introduction of our WIST team.
Awesome. Shivy, you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. I'm Shivy. I'm currently a junior in high school, and I'm one of the co-founders of this initiative. I'm also currently the founder of an engineering design program, We Engineer Innovation, or We Innovate for short, and a club softball player. I'm really excited to spread the concept of sports tech, not only to those who will be viewing this webinar live, but to anybody who might be viewing it after. I feel like it's super important to abolish the myth that athletics and technology are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I'm really, really excited for amazing women and men, like the speaker we have today, to inspire younger generations to pursue a career in sports tech. Tiffany, I don't think we've ever met before, so I just wanted to introduce myself to you as well.
Nice to meet you. Those pictures behind you are dope.
Thank you.
Sports, love it.
Yeah. It's great to meet you too, and thank you again for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Shivy. Tiffany, nice to see you again. You were on a webinar about a month ago, which was awesome.
Yeah.
For just to introduce myself, my name's Lydia Hanowich. I'm a WIST volunteer, and I was a student athlete growing up, went to Clemson, and now I work at a wearable tech company called Catapult Sports. But thanks for everyone for joining us.
And I am Sydney Dodson. It's nice to see you again, Tiffany.
Hello.
I am a student at the University of San Francisco Sport Management Master's Program, where I currently work as the social media specialist. I am a WIST 2020 fellow, where I just wrapped up an internship as a data analyst with Zoom. Alrighty, so we'll quickly please feel free to submit questions in the chat, as we'll have a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. We are very excited to dive into the questions and hear more about your career and journey and get your advice for the students joining us here today.
Yeah, lay the questions on me. I'm here to answer them all.
Great. Well, thanks for kicking off with the intro, Sydney. So we'll dive right into the questions. First question I have, Tiffany, is could you introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about the field you work in and how you're inspired to build your own company?
Yeah, so my name's Tiffany Kelly. I kind of tell people that I'm a sports and entertainment data scientist. So I got my start at ESPN and just kind of haphazardly fell into media and was building metrics at ESPN, predictive models, descriptive models, literally you name it. But the college football fan happiness index at ESPN and a few other models that were pretty big for the company, which is super cool. But I knew I wanted to work in sports super early on growing up. I wanted to actually work with an NBA team, front office, but there's only 5 women data scientists in the NBA right now. Very, very small. I feel like there were maybe 1 when I was interviewing back then. I say back then, literally like 4 years ago. But so that's kind of what I do. And now I've kind of transferred over to being founder, CEO of a video tech company, where actually being a data scientist is extremely helpful, just kind of understanding data and research and product and making sure that we're not just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, like we're actually doing things quantitatively and understanding why we're doing things and why we're building things into the product. And it's a video tech startup, so we allow video creators and creators to edit their videos for free, and then we match them to sponsors, and they're able to make money on all of their video channels, not just YouTube. So YouTube, IGTV, Facebook Watch. And how this is relevant with sports, we're starting with athletes. So just a target market that our team has connections to. Pro athletes, and then onboarding student athletes once they're able to monetize, which huge law change, which I'm super excited about. But yes, that is who I am, and that is what I do.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. And can
Yeah.
you break down what a data scientist does for our high school?
Yes, great question. So we predict things in so many words. So there's actually three careers within, I guess, the data field under the data umbrella. So you kind of have a data engineer who's kind of the main architect of like the database, or kind of working with APIs, just getting the data, wrangling it in, and kind of making it pretty and formatting it in the way that you need it to. You have data scientists, which is the one actually running and building predictive models. So we're taking that data in from a database or wherever it is, an API, or literally Excel, CSV, and running predictive models on it. So like Monte Carlo, regression, literally just those are some of the names that hopefully you guys will learn. But so yeah, so that's what data science is doing. And then you have data analyst, who is actually crafting insights from those models that are being ran, if that makes sense. So when a model spits out output, it's kind of just what the output is, and a data analyst kind of a lot of the times is able to craft stories or create dashboards, literally turning those numbers into something relevant for the company, business intelligence, things like that. So those are kind of the three main positions within like the data field. So honestly, if you're a data scientist, you low-key do all of those things. It's if you nice, like what's really nice is at a big company like ESPN, we did kind of have everyone segmented out. We were still working with each other, but like at a startup, literally one person is kind of doing all of that, or it's kind of literally just one person that's probably doing data scientists doing all of that. But yeah, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I've been trying to learn more about that department at my own company because I'm on the sales team. It's just helpful to have that data to drive decisions.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important.
Cool. And what has your journey taught you about sports tech as a broad field?
Good question. I mean, it's an interesting industry. I think I know as a founder, in order to kind of build a scalable business, you have to start off as a monopoly. Like you have to start off with some unfair advantage. Like every investor is kind of looking at that. Like what unfair advantage do you have? And the fact that our company, I know, is kind of in this huge, broad industry of media and attention, we've had to kind of focus a little bit more on like sports tech, even though it's not necessarily just sports tech. Like we're just working with athletes. But I think it's a super small industry. Everyone kind of knows each other because sports is so small, and when you kind of add the layer of tech and data science on it, it gets even smaller. But yeah, I think I had an internship down in South Florida when I was in school, with a Under Armour like training facility that I was actually kind of doing like looking at biometrics data and kind of like the sports science side of things, which is kind of sports tech, health tech, which was really, really interesting. So I think there's so many different avenues within sports tech umbrella. But yeah, super small industry, but I'm still learning every day, and I think it's really interesting.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, that's why women's sports tech has been great. It's just expanded my knowledge. So learn something every
Yeah,
day.
yeah, because Catapult kind of falls into that, like health tech, I guess, tracking, all that good
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, the sports science team.
Yeah.
All right. And then what sports did you play when you were younger? And how those experiences impact your work like today?
Yes, I played three sports growing up, basketball, volleyball, and I swam. Um, swimming. So my dad actually swam in college competitively, and he was on one of the first national black champions at Morehouse. And so I feel like he just like threw me in a pool when I was like a baby. That like you weren't gonna get around that.
The training
But
is crazy. I remember I did it for 2 years
that's
in high school,
literally
the
why I
hours.
stopped.
Yeah.
That is why I
So,
stopped swimming. Um,
yeah.
if anyone's listening and you're a swimmer, keep going. That's great. Like, not trying to tear you away from swimming, but it was tough. The 2 days waking up at 5 a.m. was not easy. Also swimming and volleyball was in the same season, so I had to like pick which one I wanted to do. Um, and ended up picking volleyball. And our high school was actually one of the top 100 in the nation, so we also kind of did 2 a days sometimes, or our practices are just like super hardcore. I played volleyball year round as well, like beach, indoor, and then club. But yeah, those are three sports that I played.
Awesome.
Oh, did you ask what I learned? So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That
I think
was-
sports. Well, and I think everyone kind of understands this, but sports is just anything with a team, and especially if you're a leader for that team. I think it goes perfectly with just working in the workplace, or, um, I mean, leading a company. Just because if you're working with people, and team sports, I think are awesome. Even if you are or an individual and you play tennis or you swim or something, I still think those are extremely relevant. Just with like time management and like just being mentally tough when it just comes to either building a company or working in corporate. So um, yeah, I think playing sports growing up is awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, so moving a little bit, I guess, towards the high school, college age,
Yeah.
what classes and extracurriculars in high school and college do you think really prepared you for where you're at in your career and your journey?
Yeah, I really like this question because looking back, so for college, I can say it's super random, but my database management class, so um, our teacher was actually like one of the executives at SunPass. So I went to school down South Florida. For those that don't know, SunPass, it's literally like the tolls ticketing. And it was so cool because he would just bring real world experience into the classroom and database management, and they're like getting records and like thousands of data points like every second. It's pretty crazy. And so just understanding on a large scale how data works, the relationship data, like how does a database work, and like normalizing data. So like when you're building a tech product, or if you're just working with data, you're getting like data points, you're getting information from your product or whatever it is. And so just understanding how it all kind of works together is really important. And so database management was actually one of my favorite classes in college. I thought I was going to hate it for some reason, but it was actually really, really cool. And just kind of tapped into this processing layer, I guess, that I have in my brain. High school, obviously, I actually didn't know I was going to go into data science in high school. I knew that I wanted to work in sports. I just didn't know in what capacity. And it wasn't until my senior year in high school when I actually realized, like, oh, like this is actually a career. Let me focus in on it, and understand just like all the things that kind of go into it. So my favorite class in high school was actually AP US history. But maybe that also taps into a little, I don't know, data science as well, because like to be able to build models, we have to have historical data. Um, and just understanding patterns that happen, which is kind of what history is. But I actually hated math, like,
Wow,
ironically. I
crazy.
hated math. But I think I think that was honestly because of my teacher. Like, I wasn't a fan of my teacher. But and I think the fact that I hated math, or the fact that like I didn't have like a cookie cutter. So my degree in college was actually sports management, but I finished that sophomore year. So junior, senior year, I was taking database programming classes, statistics 1, 2, and 3, calculus 1, 2, and 3. But I started to love it more because of the data that I was playing with. So like, I think it's tough because I do know, obviously, with the statistics with women in STEM and a lot of us hating math. I think if it's framed differently, or if you just have fun data to play with, it doesn't really feel like it's just this annoying process, or like, I don't know. So that's I kind of tell people that all the time, that just because you might hate something totally cool, you might like find a love for it later. Or and if you don't write code, totally cool. I wrote code for 2 months before ESPN hired me. I just kind of got thrown in the fire. Like, it was so funny because I did this independent study project in college, and then only 2 months of coding experience in R, and then I had to go to this new corporate job and build an entire model from 2 months of coding experience that eventually I was able to build it. But yeah, so I wouldn't freak out. And those are the classes that I thought were the most important.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that you said how like a lot of that whole stigma that girls tend to not like math might be how it's presented in schools and stuff like that. I guess kind of
Yeah.
piggybacking along with that whole uninspiring kind of teacher idea. How do you deal with like an uninspiring coach or an uninspiring teacher and kind of take control of your own interests?
Oof, that is such a great question. I feel like I feel like having some type of mentor in whatever capacity that looks like is extremely helpful. Like, whether it's your parents, or obviously you would hope your teacher or your coach would be a mentor, but if they aren't, then I think it's finding organizations, or just finding things that you can tap into to find a mentor to kind of help you out a little bit. I know, I mean, I talked to my mom also coded. So she she worked at MIT for a little bit and was like decoding she's wild. She was like decoding bombs at one point in her career, and I'm like, who are you? Like, and like coded in BASIC, just like a whiz. And I didn't find out all this until later, and I'm just like, what? And it's so crazy back then when like people were coding, because they literally like had cards, and their code was on computer cards, and they would like go put the card in the computer, and like if just like you had one bug in your code, you had to redo everything. Pretty crazy. But so just because I had a math teacher that I didn't like, or if someone was uninspiring or wasn't the best, I think I kind of always had my parents kind of lean on a little bit and talk to them about things. And again, like, if that isn't the case for everyone, I think it's just finding just a mentor, organization that can kind of see your potential and help you out, for sure.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. Obviously, it's probably difficult for like young girls who might not have like that mentorship or like that vision of what they want to do to find those mentors. So, what are some
Mhm.
goals that you think young girls looking to go into your field should set for themselves, or any advice that you have?
Yeah, I think maybe even doing camps. I'm trying to think, because I didn't do any coding camps. I literally just played sports like growing up in high school. And it wasn't until college where I actually just started focusing on coding a little more. So I would honestly say, like, if you have a passion for something, just like focus on that, because literally what you said before you started asking me questions, like you can combine sports and tech. Like eventually, like if you love something and if you're passionate about sports, there's so many different sides to it. um I know one of my friends, she's a chemist, and like she like makes makeup, right? So it's like, I don't know, you like playing in makeup, or like just playing in just random things that eventually you can add code to it later down the road, or add whatever discipline it is that you decide to study in college down the road. So I actually, I feel like I'm answering this question like, don't put too much pressure on like coding camps or just like all of these extracurriculars. Like if you love something, do it. And if you don't love something, stop doing it. Like my dad put me in piano for a few years, and I was like, Dad, I love you, but I just like hate this. Like I can't keep doing it. So yeah, I think it's just sticking with stuff that you love. And then if you do want to do camps, I think that's awesome. And just kind of merging what you love and what you're passionate about, like with that and with tech.
Yeah, for sure. And just pulling, I guess, from your backstory a little bit, how would you encourage young girls who might be looking to start their own business or something like that? Obviously, like the whole CEO journey is a little bit difficult for girls, and girls, of course, break into. So, do you have any advice for girls looking to do that?
Yeah, there are some really awesome books and like online courses that help with that. I know the one that everyone talks about, Y Combinator Startup School, is so good. That was actually the first online course that I took when I realized I wanted to build something. And it's just so easy to understand, and they don't go into the weeds of like, I don't know, like investors and like cap table. Like they don't do that. It's really just understanding what are the things that investors look for, or how do you know if your product is actually needed or wanted, like just certain things. That was extremely helpful. So Y Combinator Startup School online course is awesome. I think there's only like 10 of them. It's completely free. And Y Combinator, by the way, is Airbnb started there, Dropbox, I think, literally every single company has kind of started with Y Combinator. Um, I mentioned this book on the last webinar, 0 to 1, is really good. And it's really interesting because it does talk about like Facebook and Instagram a little bit and how they started. And just like having a monopoly and certain things that you have to pay attention to. So yeah, I think I love reading and reading books like that. So those types of resources are pretty awesome.
Great. Thank you for those.
Of
What are
course.
your 3 biggest things you wish you knew in high school that you know now?
It's so funny because I could come up with 3 things and they probably all tie back to this one overarching thing. I would say literally life changes and be flexible. I think in high school, after I had that experience with so context, I had the job shadow career day. I'm sure every high school has career day. I was job shadowing the Hornets New Orleans team. That night is when I literally realized I wanted to go into analytics, data science, because I was able to like piggyback off of the stats guys. Everybody knew who they were. They got to go and they had all access passes to the arena. So I'm this like 17-year-old, like bushy-eyed, brown-tailed little girl, just like walking around the entire arena, like meeting famous people, all because I'm like with the stats guys, which is so random. So literally that night is when I decided. And so I wanted to work for a team. That was originally, I was like, I have to work for an NBA team. Like, I want to do exactly what they're doing and kind of do all of these things, create all of these metrics, what have you. But my life didn't turn out like that at all. and I think things can feel like a bummer, or like it's like really frustrating if you want something and it doesn't happen that way. But I worked at ESPN. I was the only Black woman in a 400 person department of like statisticians and like analysts. And I mean, and one of the reasons why I did want to go into data science for an NBA team was because literally nobody looked like me that night when I was job shadowing. So, and of course, me, me not being naive and just like thinking about my parents and understanding them and what they told me, how obviously don't be naive, but like know that you're still a minority and you're still a woman. And so I knew that I wanted to have a quantitative career where like numbers are unbiased. Well, they can be, but numbers are unbiased. And so if I had the same numbers as a guy, like I couldn't really be discriminated against. So that being in the back of my mind as a 17-year-old, I know heavy stuff, but that's the life when you're a person of color. So even though it wasn't the way that I imagined it that night of going to work for a team, I eventually ended up in another industry, or in another company, corporation, and it was beyond what I could have imagined. And I learned so much. And then that experience is now I'm building a media company, basically like a media video tech startup. So I would just say be flexible. Things change all the time. Have a passion and not a job in mind, because things change. And if you know what you love to do, even though that might change, as long as like that North Star, that passion is still there, then you can go into avenues that you didn't even know were possible and be way happier with where you might end up.
Yeah, definitely. And stemming from that idea of going into something that's very unbiased, what is a challenge you have experienced as a member of a minority group, and how have you overcome that?
Yeah, I think now it's like when something happens, it like takes you back. It's just like, what, did that really happen? Like, it's 2020. Still happens. And again, I lean on my parents when something does happen. I let them know, and just like, and even my best friends, like just a sanity check to make sure like I'm not imagining things or anything. I know it's super tough. I mean, something happened like while I was at ESPN where the metric that I built just got huge publicity nationally, and they wanted someone to go on TV and talk about it all the time. And it was one of those things where they literally took it, like, I don't want to say they took it away from me, but it became like, hey, Tiff, like, we don't feel comfortable with you representing us on TV. Like, we're going to go with so-and-so to now like lead the metric in a different direction and kind of represent the company on TV. And it's hard to hear that, because it's one of those things where it's just like, damn, okay, like thought we were progressive. But I mean, when you think about it, like majority of ESPN's viewership being like 50-60 white men, it's also one of those things where you have to, it's super tough, and just having to realize that as well. So even though that is not an excuse at all, to not put a person of color on TV, and kind of have them be at the forefront. But yeah, it's one of those moments where you just really have to, I don't know, talk to your tribe and just kind of try to feel better. And I mean, eventually that happening, it was one of the reasons why I did end up leaving the company and kind of building my own thing, because as a CEO, I can literally hire who I want, and majority of our team is diverse. And I don't ever want someone to feel like that ever again in the startup and then in the company that I'm building. And so, I mean, I have a great relationship with every single person that works under me. We have, I think, about 10 or 11 employees, both part-time, full-time, and interns. And so everyone's just super comfortable. They can come to me with anything. And like I said, we're extremely diverse. And so that's just always top of mind. And I think having an extremely diverse workforce, it does feel a little bit more natural, and like you can relax a little bit more. And everyone like not looking like you, or you constantly always thinking about that. So yeah, it's hard, but just being mentally sound as well, and having people you can lean on and talk to.
Yeah, and you were able to move on to bigger and better things from
Yeah,
it, so it helped.
exactly.
We have one more question just before the Q&A. How can girls identify what they want to do and boost their self-confidence to achieve those aspirations?
I think it's just following what you're passionate about. The confidence thing is a really good question. My confidence, it's having a good network of people around you. I think, again, my confidence came from my parents, it came from my friends, it came from my team. And I think because they just let me have the freedom to do and love and work on what I was passionate and what I love to do. I didn't really, I don't know, I don't want to say I didn't really have the issue of not having confidence all the time. Like, I think everyone has that issue, but I think it's just following that North Star and what you love to do and what you're passionate about, and always focusing on that, and not focusing on peer pressure to do other things if you don't really want to do it. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say for that question.
Awesome. So now we'll open it up to Q&A if anyone has any questions.
And while we're waiting for anybody, if they want to put any questions in, one of my friends who wanted to make this webinar and couldn't actually wanted me to ask you something.
Yes.
Yeah, she actually had 2 questions. She's really interested in sports tech, but she wanted to first ask, how do you deal with sexism and racism in the workplace?
Yeah, it's so funny. I get this question so many times, like when I'm like traveling, or well, I'm not traveling now, but when I was like speaking at Facebook and just so many other places, I'm such like I'm not a confrontational person, but literally if someone says something or calls me out or says something that's like sideways, I'm always just like, what? Like, I just kind of let my work speak for me. And I if someone does have a comment that is just like frustrating or what have you, I don't want to say I ignore it. I let them know if it's problematic, for sure. But understand that has more to do with that person than it does you. And so, yeah, just letting my work speak for me. That's literally one of the reasons why I love my career, because it's one of those things where if you're like predicting something and like you'll know very soon if what you built was awesome or not. And I think when fan happiness took off the way that it did, so it's kind of funny, my former manager actually told me not to spend too much time on it or focus too hard on it, because they didn't think it was relevant enough, or they're just like, hey, we're just gonna give you this project. It's like, get your feet wet and see what you can do. And I was like, well, it's my first project at ESPN. I'm not gonna pay attention to it. And so it was so funny when they said that, because I built something, spent a few months building it, and then it just got over 1 million views within a day and just took off nationally. And so, like, at that point, like, everybody on my team was like, okay, like, we'll be quiet now, I guess. So yeah, I think it's just having confidence, and then respectfully telling someone if their statement's problematic, and just focusing on your craft and just like what you do. That's amazing. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, of course. And then her other question was, how did you hear about sports tech, because she heard about it through these webinars, but a lot of like my friends, a lot of the people I know don't know it exists. So how did you hear about it?
It was that night when I job shadowed for career day. So I think obviously if a high school exposes you career day, and how I got it, one of my friends actually, one of my friends, I was in my class, her sister, I think, worked with the NBA team. And so she worked on the public relations marketing team, actually. So that's who I was supposed to be shadowing that night. But Will Ferrell was there. So like they were super busy and swamped. So they just stuck me with the stats guys. And that's literally how I found out about sports analytics and like data science. I was like, this is a career? What? So I think it's being in places and joining organizations or doing things like these webinars or what have you, where you are kind of exposed to it, which is how I was able to find out about, sports tech. Also researching, like we all have Google at our fingertips now. So
yeah, I don't think finding out through like Will Ferrell is like the typical way of finding out about a career, but I mean,
It's
whatever.
meant to be.
Very true.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But I think that kind of concludes the questions we had. And just to wrap everything up, just wanted to say thank you again for your time. This was fantastic. And we're really, really excited that you could share your journey with our community and all of the girls who will be seeing this both now and afterwards. So just to reiterate, Tiffany here is the founder and CEO of Curastory, and you can follow her on LinkedIn or any social medias. And yeah, thank you again so much for your time.
Of course. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I mean, if anyone needs anything, obviously social media, totally ping me. I try to respond to everything. I'm very OCD about checking my messages. So whatever you guys need.
And just as a quick shout out to you, can you like give us a little blurb about your statue?
I knew you were gonna do this. Okay, so there's this organization called IFTHEN. It's a nonprofit organization that they chose about 125 women across the US that work in STEM careers. So I'm one of the 125, and there's amazing women. Like there is like my friend who's a chemist, works at L'Oreal, and she literally just plays with makeup all day, which I think is the coolest career. And I think a lipstick that she just made for L'Oreal, they got like an award, which is pretty crazy. There's like shark researchers, there's like people that work for Nat Geo, just amazing women. And it's kind of this big media rollout where for girls to actually want to go into STEM, they need to see people that look like them and see people that have different types of careers in STEM. Like it's not homogeneous. And so that's kind of what the organization's about. So we have a lot of press, we have a lot of media that comes out. And it was funny, whenever we were in Dallas for our summit, they were like, oh, by the way, all of y'all are becoming statues. And we're just like, wait, what? It was so funny. So yes, we got 3D, which is also STEM. We got 3D printed statues of ourselves where we're in this like 360 photo thing. And we were all like carrying or doing something that is relevant to our career. So I had like a football on my phone. And that is going to be a traveling exhibit, all 120 women across like the large cities in the country. So starting in Dallas at the Perrot Museum of Nature and Science, and then going to other places. And I think coming up to New York, I have to figure out where. But yeah, that's literally what it is. I'm a statue, guys.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you again so much.
Yeah,
Of
just
course.
before we sign off, we just wanted to get a quick picture just to
Yes, of course.
have. So I'm just going to take that real quick. Awesome. Okay, great.
Yay.
Just wanted to say thank you again. And yeah.
Of course. Anytime. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.